morning. It's Philadelphia Walks PTSD. I'm just quietly walking back a little early, so I kept the private mode on the stream, which means when I put it in private, or I guess they call it unlisted, usually on the modes, then no one can really come in. I guess you can use it to invite people via email, but technically it's private mode. On my phone, they only have two modes, unlisted and public. But unlisted is basically private in my world. So anyway, Under the Cloak of Dogs is what I titled this particular morning walk back. And that is one of the things that kind of came up during my experience, which was really bizarre, sometimes supernatural, tons of harassment, a lot of pain. It seems like the universe or whoever's out there can shade things 10 times over. So a lot of people might see something, but they don't know the additional dimensions involved with it. So they wouldn't be as sensitive. Anyway, it's hard to explain. You would know if you got hit by it. Even people who are used to having things roll off their backs would wind up going a little bit bonkers. So anyway, Under the Cloak of Dogs is the idea that, say, the owners of dogs could sort of like hide in or embody their dogs, say when they're away or something. And you know how people say, oh my gosh, the owner looks just like the dog, or the dog looks like the owner. What a good match, you know? But what if there was some weird, almost witchy thing, like witchcrafty thing, where owners or whatever could hide in the dog or embody the dog or dogs in order to avoid something that's going on, locally. It would be like, these people aren't on vacation, they're hiding in their dogs for, so that's some weird, logically you would say that's totally crazy, but it's something that's came up during gang stalking, and in a way, some dogs sort of almost adopt their owners' mannerisms or expressions. It's hard to explain. This is why we say, oh my gosh, the owner looks like the dog, or what a good match. I, many years ago, met someone named Elizabeth, and she wore her hair in a certain way, and she had a certain essence to her, a very unusual character, if you will, very lovable and stuff like that, but also had, sort of like incredibly intelligent, which kind of, drove her crazy a little bit. That happens a lot with people who are super smart. It's hard to get by in the world. So anyway, she wore her hair a certain way and had certain images online. I began walking a Yorkshire Terrier in Rittenhouse Square, who like shook and shivered and barked all the time. But the way that the Yorkshire Terrier's hair fell reminded me of Elizabeth. And this was a dog named Cody. So in a way, this weird thing would happen. And this is part and parcel of what goes on in harassment, gang stalking, and everything. And the tactics used is that Cody represented Elizabeth often. So like certain things would happen while I walked Cody. And, I'd start to, worry that, did they trap Elizabeth in Cody? Like, because maybe she was a target of gang stalking as well. She's someone who sort of tried to help me at times in terms of understanding gang stalking. And it's like, what if they could trap a person's soul in a dog? And it's sort of the thing of good girl, no barking. It all plays in together. Where I had to sort of untangle this idea of all these people calling me a dog and having it become like, I feel, or it's a better way to say it. The idea that all these people see other people as dogs per se. And they even use the word dog in the military. You have dog tags. So I'm not part of the military. My dad was a reservist for the National Guard, so he kind of, and they played taps at his funeral, but it wasn't like no one was really overly militarized. So although mentally some people, I would almost say in my step family, mentally their minds are more sort of in that realm. I'm actually not in that realm. I'm more of a, I guess, creative person, or it depends. Although my experience had me doing all kinds of things out here, reading license plates, um, serial numbers, makes and models of cars, identifying people on the street. It's hard to explain, but it was part and parcel of everything I experienced. And I feel like someone invisibly trained me in a certain way. It was ridiculous at a very high level, because I would race down the street, naming every single make and model and car. It's crazy. So thank God everything's sort of settled down, and that's been deprogrammed, if you will. But this witchcrafty idea of could some people get dogs for the purpose of hiding behind them and embody them, and that sort of came up as a weird thing, like, God, these dogs look so much like their owners, or there's an essence or a similarity so much that it's like, what if they wanted to not be seen for a few weeks before Thanksgiving or over Thanksgiving, in case, say, like, cities get a little Nazified, or a lot of police presence comes around because of parades. In our case, we have a marathon here right before Thanksgiving, and then there's voting that went on a couple weeks ago. So a lot of police presence and militarized thinking and stuff like that has been going on. And could high-level people learn to hide? Anyway, it was just a weird thing. But so under the cloaks of dogs, the other thing I wanted to bring up was 2 or 3 addresses near where I'm doing overnights have ketchup splatter. One place might have had a bottle of ketchup that crashed in the picking up of trash and everything. Trash day was yesterday for those blocks over at the 2100 block of Cypress, Delancey, or what have you. And there's the ketchup aroma was all over the place. So anyway, I noticed that the splatter wound up at 3 different addresses, and it was sort of like, sort of like no one here yet. It's a little early. I'm on the early sign, so Starbucks people might just be rolling in slowly to open later. They don't open till like 5:30, so technically they don't have to be until 5. But ketchup splatter, ketchup chronicles, and I wonder also, like, how people can read tea leaves, and it seems like some sort of thing. What if people could read the world, and read nature, or read out things that occur? So you would see things and think, oh, it was blood splattered, like some people would say, metaphorically speaking, at certain addresses. Or, of course, the blood splatter did show up where I talked about yesterday, 2 things that very much resembled items that are associated with my mom. The mint Tupperware container, I guess you could say oblong, but it's a rectangle, long and thin. And the other item, a small chair that was placed in her empty room for real estate photo purposes, or what they call staging. You stage a home to make it more likable so that someone will buy it. And these 2 items, coincidentally, in a city of, hundreds of thousands or millions of people, and those 2 items wind up sort of right on the block where I'm doing overnights only so often. So, it's not like I live there permanently or anything, but I'm there every once in a while to house sit. So when you think about it, when you realize how many people live in the city, how many addresses there are, and so forth and so on, what are the odds that 2 things that are one very sentimental, the other one sort of sentimental, but it reminded me very much of my mom and the room that she stayed in. And in a way, because she didn't own the home where she was living, she lived with my aunt. In a way, she really didn't have the run of the house. It's different when you feel freedom and can roam from room to room. When you're sort of stuck in a position or forced in a position, even by people who seem like they're helping, you never know what plays into what and why people wind up where they are. But, she wound up sitting in her room a lot to watch. She wound up getting a small TV, so she didn't have, in a way, she wanted to watch some of the things that she wanted to watch and not sit in the living room where my Aunt Jane usually sat. So my Aunt Jane, it was her house, so she felt more freedom to roam about. When you own a home, you have the freedom. When you don't own the home, you don't feel as free. It's just a fact. In a way, you always feel a little bit like a guest. Even if people try hard to not want someone to feel that way, it still just exists. Doesn't matter. It's just the realities of life. So I know my mom probably felt a lot more freedom, having her own space in the room, but also, I have to say, every once in a while, my aunt would visit one of her sons in Georgia, or go to a, every once in a very blue moon, would be invited to go on a vacation, like once or twice with the Georgia guy on a vacation, or a special trip with the other cousin or son. And I'm sure that my mom felt like, I get to be here by myself, for a minute and sort of enjoy not feeling policed, if you will, in a way. Not that anyone would want that, but there was something to, it's hard to explain. But for all those people who have never got to have their own space, their own apartment, or their own house, and they sort of have to live by someone, knowing that someone else owns it, just the knowledge that someone else owns it is enough to not have the same sense of freedom as the person who owns. Anyway, really quick, Burger King cup here, and of course my first job was Burger King. So that's how every once in a while I'll see a cup out here. I don't know where the closest Burger King is in Center City. We don't have any McDonald's in downtown Center City. They all disappeared, partially with the looting and partially with redevelopment. So there used to be one down here where there's a Walnut Garden now. There was one over by kind of by Love Park-ish, in that vicinity. It's like the City Hall vicinity. That one was closed down because they built a whole new apartment building. Like, they converted that building to an apartment building and got rid of the McDonald's. And the other McDonald's was actually a drive-through all the way down by Carpenter and Broad near Sprouts grocery store. They got rid of that. I don't know if it was because of looting. I don't know if it was set on fire during the George Floyd trial. I have no idea. But you have to go a little bit further out to find a McDonald's than Center. You have to go outside of Center City, Philadelphia. There's Walnut Garden, and that's where one of the McDonald's would have been. And there were technically 3 stores here. Doc Martens and Vans, they kind of moved. I think they were further up here. So they rebuilt and came in down here. I'm almost certain they were more up here. It was like McDonald's, Doc Martens, Vans. So anyway, in terms of Burger King, I have no idea where one is. We do have a small Wendy's on Chestnut. They used to have a larger Wendy's over by the Jefferson University Hospital. That's closed down. So in terms of fast food, it's, a little harder to come by, oddly. In Center City, you have to go a little bit on the outskirts, which would be considered somewhat suburban-ish, before it would become full-on suburbia. But just a little interesting factoid. I happen to go raw vegan foodie green juicer, and upon moving to Philadelphia, it was almost like embarrassing to go to a fast food restaurant, just because there was a sense of neighborhood restaurants and not partaking of stuff like that, eating well, and so forth and so on. So anyway, that's that. But under the cloak of dogs, can people... How weird would it be if people take on the essence of dogs or even cats and hide there? Okay, so that's it, and have a beautiful morning. It's Tuesday before Thanksgiving 2023, Philadelphia, PA.